Senate will come to order. All those not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor, please rise as we're led in prayer by the pastor, Matt Davis of the Bridge Church in Scott Depot, West Virginia. Please remain standing after the prayer as the senator from Wood leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Let's pray. Almighty God, through your Son, Jesus, you remind us that blessed are those who are aware of their need for you. Blessed are the humble, the vulnerable, the gentle and lowly. Blessed are those who desire right relationship with you and with others. You remind us that blessed are the merciful, the pure, the peacemakers, and the persecuted. God, would you help us to become the kind of people whose lives are marked by this blessing and your presence? Help us to give ourselves in sacrificial mission and extraordinary generosity for the sake of others. Would you settle us of the conflicts in the world, in our nation, in our state, in this room, and in our own hearts? Father, we ask that your kingdom come, your will be done in West Virginia as it is in heaven. And it's in your Son's name, the name of Jesus, that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Senator from Wood.
Would everyone in the chamber and gallery please join me in pledging to the greatest nation in the world? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Reading the journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal, February 13th, 2023. The Senate met at 11:01 a.m.
Senator
Blair.
from Capitol requests unanimous consent to further reading the journal is dispensed with, and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading the journal is dispensed with, and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome the honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As the guest is the Senator from Logan, Faith Conley, Kara Markham, Olivia Dingus. As guest is the Senior Senator from the 8th, Olivia Scott, Mia Morgan, Kenley Bing, and Sydney Angle. I hope I got that right. As guest is the Junior Senator from the 17th, Cole Holcomb. Would the Senate please make them feel welcome? Further introduction, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, we have in the gallery today students from the Occupational Therapy Assistant Program from the University of Charleston, as well as the occupational therapy students from the West Virginia University themselves. I believe they're up here. If you wouldn't mind standing, let Senate give you a warm welcome.
Further introductions. Senator from Logan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we have with us, seated in the President's Gallery, the chaperones of honorary pages, Faith Conley's mother and brother, Sabrina and DJ Conley, Olivia Dingus' mother, Peggy Dingus, and Mia Morgan's parents, Troy and April Morgan. Will they stand in the chamber and make them welcome?
Senator from Monongalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have some guests that have returned from the AARP, and specifically from my hometown of Morgantown. We have Beverly Kerr, if she will please stand, and if the other members of the AARP will join her. Thank you.
Senator from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to tell everybody happy Valentine's today, but I have a couple of WVU occupational therapy students. They're juniors, Lauren Frame and Sammy Windish. If they'd please stand and the Senate make them welcome.
Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very pleased today to have here attending the Municipal League meetings this weekend some officials from New Martinsville. We have Mayor Sandy Hunt. Would you please stand, Sandy? And also we have 3 council people, Steve Polisco, Joe Smith, and Joel Potts, and junior council member Devin Tennant. We have recorders Kim Whiteman and her daughter's with her, who is an occupational therapist here in West Virginia, and also Beverly Gibbs, someone I worked with for years with the Parks and Recreation Department in New Martinsville with the Senate. Please give them a warm welcome.
Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. In your North Gallery, I have two guests. I have Fallensby City Council member Nick Sakinovich, and a very dear friend of mine, Beth Heinbaugh, who is the owner of Noah's Ark Daycare. Please stand and make them feel welcome.
Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seated in our North Gallery, we have Matt Lorimer. Matt, stand up. He is State Government Relations Manager for ADF, which stands for Alliance Defending Freedom, and they're an organization comprised of attorneys that fight for conservative values in legislation. Senate, please join me in making him welcome.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate and the President's Gallery, today is National Donor Day, and we have Samantha Stone is here representing her family today. Samantha's grandmother was one of the very first West Virginians to receive a kidney transplant. Sadly, she and her two sisters, Vicki and Jamie, both inherited polycystic kidney disease from their grandmother. Her sister, Vicki, died in 2020 from a brain aneurysm, and but donated her kidney to her sister, Jamie. Jamie is continuing to do really well. Samantha works as a doctorate-prepared nurse practitioner at CAMC Cardiovascular Health, and she continues to show her passion and support for donors and recipients. If the Senate would please make her feel welcome.
Senator from Monongalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have some student leaders with us today. We have the student body president from Marshall University, who I know the senators from Cabell and Wayne want to make welcome. And if she'll stand, that's Isabella Griffiths. And with her, we also have from Concord, Stella Dunn. If those two will stand and the Senate make them welcome.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. In the President's Gallery, we have Jennifer Whaley, who is the mother of one of our honorary pages, Cole. If she would stand and the Senate please make her welcome. Thank you.
Senior Senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we have with us seated in the President's Gallery, chaperones of our honorary pages, Meredith Engel, Anthony Scott, Ty Bing, and Troy and April Morgan. If they would stand and the Senate please make them welcome.
Further introductions. Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the adoption by that body of Senate Concurrent Resolution 7, amending joint rules of Senate and House of Delegates.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendment to Senate Concurrent Resolution 7.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate concur in the House amendments to the Senate Concurrent Resolution 7. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The resolution amends the joint rules of the Senate and the House of Delegates, creating a new rule, Rule 31, to regulate the naming of transportation infrastructure. The House amendment clarifies the intent of the resolution that the new rule does not take effect until sine die adjournment of the 2023 regular session. The clarification is an improvement to the new rule because some of the deadlines set forth in the new naming resolution procedures expired prior to this year's regular session, mostly technical. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, question for the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendment to the Senate Concurrent Resolution 7. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on adoption of the resolution as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2621 relating generally to bail bondsmen.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Banking and Insurance, then the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3111 creating infrastructure-ready jurisdictions.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Economic Development.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3306 relating to the organizational structure of the Office of Drug Control Policy.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
House Bill 3307 establishing the West Virginia-Ireland Trade Commission.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Economic Development. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 151 relating to levying tax on pass-through entities' income and reports back a committee substitute for same, and Senate Bill 579 providing payment to vendors not paid due to an agency's budget limit and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Tarr, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 585 prohibiting county commissions from adopting any authorization that exceeds state law regarding agricultural operations and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Respectfully submitted, Bill Hamilton, Chair.
Report will be received, and under the original double committee reference, the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction to bills. Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 614 through Senate Bill 630 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on our chamber automation system.
Senior Senator from 17 requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 614 through Senate Bill 630 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
There are none.
Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. On third reading by action of the Rules Committee, Senate Bill 472 has been moved to the Rules Committee calendar. Also on second reading by action of the Rules Committee, Senate Bills 441, 452, 453, 458, and 474 have been moved to the Rules Committee calendar.
Unfinished business.
Senate Resolution 30 recognizing February 14th, 2023 as National Donor Day at the Legislature.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with and the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 30 recognizing February 14th, 2023 as National Donor Day at the Legislature.
The question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today being National Donor Day at the Legislature, I just wanted to give a few statistics and some information. West Virginia has a proud legacy when it comes to organ donation. So far, more than 50,000 people have signed up on their hunting and fishing licenses alone. Did you also know that Cecil Lockhart is a 95-year-old coal miner from Short Pole, West Virginia, and he's the oldest organ donor in history? West Virginians know that we are our best when we work united as a community. We need to work together to educate others and encourage our family, friends, colleagues, neighbors, and others to become organ donors. We're going to need to work together to help end the wait in the Mountain State and save lives, sir. I urge adoption. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Further resolutions.
Senate Resolution 31 designating February 14th, 2023 as Child Care Day at the Legislature.
Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the reference to the committee be dispensed with and the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 31 designating February 14th, 2023 as Child Care Day at the Legislature.
The Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, this one's kind of close to my heart. My wife is actually her degrees in early childhood development and family studies, and it was child care that allowed my wife and I, as we were married in college and had a child, that allowed us to go to school. And so one of the things when this request was brought to me about, would you go in and introduce this resolution to recognize our child care workers? And so the first thing that came to me is what this means to the families and development of workforce in West Virginia. These child care providers are experts and professionals. They're trained to go in and take care of our family's children when we're off to go to school, when we're off to go to work, or when there's emergencies for our family. And there's a significant shortage of these workers in West Virginia. The profession needs to continue to be developed. We need to have more opportunities for these workers, and it will support the employers and families of West Virginia. I'm very honored to be asked to introduce this. I urge its adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 31 relating to permissible expenditures by Water Development Authority from Infrastructure Fund. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute makes 3 significant modifications to the bill. First, it removes the reference in the introduced bill to allow the Water Development Authority to fund projects at 100% if the project served less than 1,500 customers. Secondly, it modifies the cap that may be transferred into the critical needs failing system sub-account from $12 million to $14 million. And this is not a mandatory transfer. And then finally, it increases the cap on extensions to wastewater facilities that will add customers from the current $2 million total project cost to $3 million. It retains the language from the introduced version regarding the upgrades to facilities to reduce maintenance cost, operations cost, and water line extensions. I'll take any questions. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 99 relating to meetings among county boards of education. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is the same as Senate Bill 687, which passed the Senate last session. It establishes a process which allows 2 or more county school boards to hold 1 or more public meetings to discuss the idea of consolidating or sharing county-level services. The meeting process is to be repeated until 120 days have passed since the initial meeting, or until the boards no longer wish to meet, at which point a full report of the meeting held is to be prepared, identifying the extent to which the participating boards think existing laws enable or complicate the consolidation of the school districts or of the sharing of services, together with any suggestions of legislation. The report is required to be forwarded to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. The bill further provides that if the legislature elects to consolidate the participating county boards, it can do so as a pilot. The bill also provides that the legislature can incentivize county boards to discuss the feasibility of consolidating or sharing services. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. President. I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on Education moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 274, Third Grade Success Act. The bill was advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senators Rucker and Barrett moved to amend the bill on page 4, section 10, lines 55 through 57, by striking out all of subdivision 7 and inserting in lieu thereof a new subdivision 7 to read as follows. Establishing an approved list of dyslexia screeners to be administered to students no less than twice per year in kindergarten through third grade, and anytime students with identified deficiencies are not responding to interventions.
Senator from Jefferson. Is there discussion? Senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment, although it has already been read. So I just wanted to let folks know the International Dyslexia Association and the National Center on Improving Literacy both agree that testing and screening children in the grades K through third grade multiple times is best practice. And that is because some students with dyslexia do not show, are able to pass basic screening tests, are able to do the basic memorization of words. Their dyslexia takes time to really demonstrate itself. So this amendment basically just does what they recommend for a best practice, and I believe it strengthens the bill and the goal of this legislation. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of the Senator's amendment. This language strengthens the portion of the bill that does require screening for dyslexia, and it will allow teachers to be able to identify those characteristics and identify kids at an earlier age. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Senator from Jefferson. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be re-engrossed. The question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to challenge the Senator from Morgan here on explaining this bill. This bill actually creates the Third Grade Success Act. It replaces the transformative system of support for early literacy with a multi-tiered system of support for early literacy and numeracy in kindergarten through grade 3. The bill adds components that are required to be in a state board rule relating to assisting county boards with science of reading training for all K-3 educators, assistant teachers, aides, and, if applicable, interventionists. It establishes an approved list of screeners and/or benchmark assessments in English language arts and mathematics for kids in grades K through 3. It also establishes an approved list of dyslexia screeners. It requires a reading improvement plan for students. It elaborates on what the required family engagement is to include, and it provides certain professional development for administrators and K through 3 teachers. It ensures that educator preparation programs prepare candidates seeking licensure for elementary education with specific training and instruction. The bill also requires that each county board adopts high-quality instructional materials, that county boards provide in-service training for K-3 classroom teachers, assistant teachers, aides, and, if applicable, interventionists. That it also requires that certain students underperforming in English language arts at the end of third grade be retained in the third grade, and it provides exceptions for that cause. And it also requires that each first, second, and third grade classroom with more than 12 students have an ECAT, which is an assistant teacher, or an aide, or in some cases an interventionist. It provides for a 3-year phase in that requirement and allows the county boards to employ a full-time interventionist in place of that ECAT or aide, or if a full-time interventionist isn't available, the county can employ a part-time interventionist. It also removes a LOCIA reporting requirement, adds duties to the state education agency and the local education agency relating to addressing learning disabilities, including dyslexia and dyscalculia, literacy and numeracy screening tools, evaluating to determine eligibility for special education services, providing accommodations through a Section 504 plan, and the provision of professional development. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge passage.
It was pretty quick. Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective July 1, 2023, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective July the 1st, 2023, and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than two-thirds of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective July 1, 2023. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 409, authorizing the Department of Commerce to promulgate legislative rules. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 409 is a rules bundle. It's our rules bundle from the Department of Commerce, referred to generally as bundle number 10. The bundle contains 10 rules. There's one rule from the Development Office. There are 5 rules in it from the Division of Labor, and there are 4 rules in it from the Division of Natural Resources. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective for passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than two-thirds of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 478, relating to Jumpstart Savings Program. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill makes changes to the Jumpstart Savings Act to improve Jumpstart Saving Program functionality, close program tax loopholes, and simplify program tax benefits. Currently, individuals practicing or pursuing an occupation, profession, or trade requiring completion of an apprenticeship program or a community and technical college degree may participate in Jumpstart. The bill would allow persons practicing or pursuing an occupation, profession, or trade requiring completion of the following to participate in Jumpstart. One is degrees and technical certifications from a school or program authorized by the West Virginia Council for Community or Technical College Education or a similar agency in another state to award associate degrees or technical certifications. Second is licenses or certifications from a career and technical education or vocational training program at a public secondary school. The bill defines a new term called a qualifying profession to describe the occupations, professions, or trades that qualify an individual to participate in Jumpstart. The bill also authorizes the College and Jumpstart Savings Board in the future to expand the list of qualifying professions, eliminating the need for future legislation if the board learns of new types of entities offering technical and vocational certifications in the state. The bill eliminates the statutory minimum deposit of $25 to open a Jumpstart account, as well as the minimum deposit for an Ignite incentive payment for minors and new students opening an account. The bill eliminates potential tax loopholes identified during program implementation and in conversations with tax commissioner. The aim is that narrowing the state distribution deduction and encouraging participants to leverage existing federal deductions, the bill will provide clarity, predictability, and efficiency for participants and state agencies. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from 17 requests unanimous consent. Excuse me. The Senior Senator from 17 moves the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent, not voting. More than two-thirds of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 481, extending sunset provision of Upper Canal Valley Resiliency and Revitalization Program. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The title of the bill adequately explains the purpose of the bill. The current program being operated in the Upper Canal Valley region is currently set to sunset in 2024. This bill simply extends the sunset date an additional 5 years to 2029. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 527, allowing family members of military personnel access to discharge records. Third reading of the bill.
Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent to amend the bill on third reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Does the clerk have an amendment?
Yes, sir. Senator Weld moved to amend the bill on page 2, section 3, line 31, by striking out the word report and inserting in lieu thereof the word request.
Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, request unanimous consent to explain the amendment after having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment appears on page 2, line 31, by striking out the word report and inserts the word request. And what that section of code there deals with is that it discusses federal law dealing with the ability for individuals to have access to discharge certificates or reports from separation for members of the military. The word report was inadvertently put in there because it's 62 years from the date that the request was made. Happy to answer any questions. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Senator from Brooke. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be re-engrossed. Question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 527 does two different things, and the first is that this bill deals with discharge records, which are commonly known as DD-214s. Most of you probably heard that term. A lot of people have them recorded at our local courthouses when they separate from active duty. There is a list in code of who these forms are available to and who has access to them. This bill adds to that list the spouse, child, grandchild, parent, or sibling of the person who is subject of that military record, and also, as I just described with the amendment, has a proviso regarding federal law and 62 years releasability of these documents once the document has been created. Happy to answer questions. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 2310, provide the Division of Motor Vehicles authority to develop an antique fleet program so that multiple antique motor vehicles may utilize a single registration plate.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 3061 relating to updating the authority of the Foster Care Ombudsman. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Health and Human Resources moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Marshall.
Okay, the original bill that came from the House added language in the code that expanded the authority of the Foster Care Ombudsman to investigate reported allegations of abuse and neglect for critical incidents and to investigate children in the juvenile justice system. The strike and insert amendment adopted by the Health Committee permits the Foster Care Ombudsman to initiate a complaint on his or her own in these same areas. The remainder of the changes throughout the bill were made to conform to this expanded responsibility. For example, records collected on behalf of these above referenced individuals would need to be kept confidential. Also, Mr. President, the scope of the Ombudsman was edited to reflect the Foster Care Ombudsman's larger scope given in this amendment. I urge adoption of the amendment.
So further discussion? If not, question for the Senate's adoption amendment offered by the Committee on Health and Human Resources. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we just explained the strike and insert amendment. The purpose of this bill, I'll explain just a little bit deeper, is to expand the duties of the Foster Care Ombudsman. Currently, the Foster Care Ombudsman can investigate complaints involving a foster child, a foster parent, or a kinship parent. The bill before us now would expand the Ombudsman's authority to investigate reported allegations of abuse and neglect, to investigate a child who has sustained a critical incident, or to investigate a child in the juvenile justice system. The bill also allows for the Foster Care Ombudsman to investigate complaints on his or her own initiative. The bill broadens the authority of the Foster Care Ombudsman by removing a limitation about investigating incidents in the state of West Virginia. The bill requires the filing of an annual report and reports a requirement for quarterly data filings. The bill provides that the Foster Care Ombudsman or his or her staff may not be compelled to testify or produce evidence in any judicial or administrative proceeding with respect to the identity of an individual providing information to the Ombudsman as part of their official investigation. Lastly, Mr. President, the proposed bill also protects memoranda, work product, notes, or case files developed or maintained as part of an official investigation. The proposed bill provides the Ombudsman may be compelled to provide testimony by a court or administrative body of competent jurisdiction to any action carried out by the office that is unrelated to the substance of a specific investigation or report submitted to LACRA. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than two-thirds of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 467, providing county commissioners ongoing mechanism to consider compensation increases for elected officials every 2 years. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2412, declaring November 14th every year a special Memorial Day in remembrance of the Marshall University airplane crash. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be advanced to third reading.
Engrossed House Bill 2882, making a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Economic Development. Second reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill move to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3055 to create a vocational math class for students interested in careers in the trades. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Education moved to amend the bill on page 1, section 13, line 12, after the word classes by inserting the words and specific content.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in addition to having it read. This amendment adds the words and specific content regarding the instructor qualifications to teach current trade classes in public schools. Thank you, Mr. President. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Education. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have, the ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be advanced to third reading. Bills on first reading.
There are none.
Introduction of guest. Remarks by members.
Additionally, the legislature continued to study the issue for an entire year during the legislative interims, hearing presentations from each of the bureaus. House Bill 2006 breaks the current DHHR into 3 agencies: the Department of Health, the Department of Human Services, and the Department of Health Care Facilities. All of that will occur January 1, 2024. These entities will share administrative services as they currently now do under the Chief Operating Officer model. Currently, the DHHR has the Office of Shared Services and has 427 employees that run it, that are in it. They will continue under the Office of Shared Administrative Services. They shall implement a plan to maximize the functions and efficiency of administrative services for the purpose of streamlining services and reducing expenses within the department. To ensure that that happens, they are to report to LACRA, the Legislative Oversight Commission on Health and Human Resources, quarterly, and to have a plan to us by June of 2024. This is a similar organizational structure that the Department of Commerce, Tourism, and Economic Development are using at this time. Any agency currently residing within the DHHR, which is not specifically provided for in the statutory organization, that agency's location will be decided by the secretaries, and the legislature can update the organization statute accordingly. And I provided everyone on their desk a copy of, this is what the current structure looks like with one secretary, and you'll see I broke them out into gray, blue, and green. Those will be the 3 divisions with, or the 3 departments with 3 secretaries. In the bill, the position of the state health officer was also changed to say may also be the commissioner of the Bureau of Public Health. Before, it was mandatory that the position would be the same person. A state health officer qualifications are that they are a medical doctor, but not all medical doctors have a background in public health administration. The Office of Inspector General was also significantly changed to ensure greater independence. The Inspector General is appointed for a term of 5 years and is only eligible to be reappointed once. This is to insulate the Inspector General from outside influence. The Inspector General will also be in charge of the personnel that are listed in the organizational chart that you have on your desk. They will also set their own budget. The Office of Inspector General will be able to independently investigate the departments and will provide recommendations for changes to the legislature. Previously, they could not interact with the legislature. The Bureau of Health Facilities, the third department, becomes a new department in charge of all the state health facilities. This department will be exempted from purchasing, real estate, and personnel. Employees hired after July 1, 2023 will no longer be eligible for civil service, but the current employees will maintain that. Mr. Speaker, this is the bill. I urge passage, and I'm available for questions.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 94th, Doug Kumps, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to speak on the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
The current Department of Health and Human Resources is a systemic hot mess. I recognize that, and I certainly welcome reform. I am not completely persuaded that separating it into 3 separate agencies is a fix, but I am persuaded that it is worth a try. I only hope that this is not the last step, but only the first step to improving these services. Accordingly, I plan to vote for the bill.
Gentleman to 47th, Doug Longenacker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentlelady from Health yield for question?
Yes.
At face value, I really like where this is going. I mean, we in government, we would like to think that we're not going to set forth to fix something if it's not broken. We all know this is broke, and we have to fix it somehow. In fact, last year, I supported the bill that was vetoed. I may have even been a co-signer on that. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But my question on this is that Office of Shared Administration, is that a new entity that we are adding to state government, or will this come from the current lineup of players?
This is not new. This is currently in place, called the Chief Operating Officer, the COO. But what we've done in the bill is we have insisted that they come to us with a report on how they can streamline the services that are provided. Currently, they have 427 employees that work for the Office of Shared Administration, and they have things such as finance, purchasing, HR, IT, grounds and maintenance. They have those things. They also have duplicative services in each of these departments that do those same things. We want them to come back to us, and we require it in the bill, that see if there is a way that they can streamline so that the department doesn't try to do something from purchasing with their people. Then they have to go to the Office of Shared Administration. Then they have to actually go to the Department of Administration. So we are asking them to do that.
Okay, so to be clear, this, should it pass, will not grow the size of government.
The intention is not to grow the size of government, and in fact, we will not change their budget.
Okay, thank you.
Is there further debate on the bill? Gentleman from 76, Doug Garcia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentlelady yield for a few questions?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, with respect to the new Department of Health Facilities, there's supposed to be a long-term sustainability plan for each of the facilities, and that's going to be, can you talk a little bit about that and the purpose?
Yes, so what we found with our facilities is that they have been allowed to be run down or not admit new patients. And so we, the legislature, have been not wanting to divest of those properties, and we've been wanting to say, these need attention. If we are going to own these, we need attention to these. So this, having them as their separate department, I think will shine light on them. And on page 12 of the bill, it says, before December 1st, 2023, DHHR shall create and present to the Legislative Oversight Commission on Health and Human Resource Accountability a long-term sustainability plan for each state health facility. We want to have a fresh plan, and we want to make sure then that we hold the secretary who's appointed this position accountable to that plan.
Okay, and I think people in this body who've been here for several years have heard me talk ad nauseum about the John Manchin facility up in Fairmont. So it looks like we're putting something in here that's directing them to figure out how to make that and the other state facilities sustainable versus some of the other options we've heard about recently.
That is correct, and I have constituents in the Manchin facility who really like it there. So.
Very good. And two other things about that. First of all, there's another provision that talks about performance indicators for state hospitals. What's your expectation as far as what they're going to look at or what they're going to put together?
So that's going to look at some issues that we've had there, such as staffing. And in fact, in the budget, we're going to try to break it down so that we can see their personnel service line item, but then we can also see contractors. We apparently spent, I think, $61 million on contract services. And also, how many times do they divert patients that are supposed to go to a psych facility to somewhere else, which we have to pay a lot more money for.
Okay. And then the last question I have is, with respect to civil service, and with that ending, I think it was maybe July 1, 2023, or?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the purpose of that? Is that to make it easier to hire people, or?
That is exactly the purpose. So it's taking way too long to fill the positions, and so what the hospitals or the homes will do is they'll hire contract workers because they need workers now, and it's a lot easier to grab a contract company and sign someone up versus go through the 8 weeks I'm finding to get someone through the Division of Personnel.
Okay. And you think that'll make them more competitive and be able to be more effective in that way?
Well, I think it'll eliminate a lot of bureaucracy that it takes for us to fill the positions that we desperately need.
Great. Thank you very much for answering
welcome.
those questions. Mr. Speaker, may I speak briefly to the bill?
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. For about 10 years, I've seen DHHR in its current form with different leadership and many skilled people at the helm. And there's been many skilled people that have been commissioners and that have been in really this bureaucracy, but I think the fact that it's been so huge has kept it from being able to focus on issues. Every year it seems, there's a different focus for potentially a secretary or whatever may be the topic of the day. And it always seems to be a situation where things get lost, whether they be foster care sometimes, whether it be, I think a lot of the behavioral health issues have been lost in the shuffle of trying to figure out and be an expert on everything. And so I don't know if this is the right way either, but I like the fact that we're doing something different. I like the fact that we're going to try to make this better, and we're not just going to say, okay, let's just let it keep going on. So for that reason, I support the bill. Thank you all for the work that you've done on it.
Chairman of the 54th, Dr. Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the chair yield?
Yes.
Thank you. Real quick, which bureau is it that would be responsible for paying the rates to foster and kinship families?
Department of Human Services.
Okay. So they're over here, Department of Human Services. And what about the subsidies for adoptive parents? Which bureau is responsible for that?
All of those items will be under the Department of Human Services, all services that are presented to those that need them.
And we've separated the Ombudsman's office out of that and having the Ombudsman report directly to, I guess, the Cabinet Secretary?
The ombudsman will report to the inspector general, but you are right. We broke out the people that regulate and inspect. We broke them out from the people that provide services that they inspect.
Okay, thank you for yielding. If I may speak briefly to the bill, Mr. Speaker. The reason I asked that question, I really wanted to draw attention to something that is germane to this subject, and I think it's important that all 100 members know about it. Just last week, we received emails and calls from foster and kinship families who were not receiving their rate payments for helping to take care of children who have nobody else to take care of them. This morning, we received messages from adoptive parents who aren't receiving their subsidies. People's checks are bouncing. People are not able to pay their bills. The folks who are stepping up in this state and opening up their homes to children who are in state custody, we're not taking care of them. We had a bill that went through the other day to give tax breaks for these families, and now we are failing to take care of the people who are stepping up to take care of children who need help in this state. If this bill helps that, then we should all vote for it. I believe it will. It's a big step to separating the ombudsman out, having the OIG report directly to the secretary. It will provide for more transparency. Hopefully, it clears up some of this red tape so the government can do the simple job that it's supposed to do. The most important thing, help take care of those who cannot take care of themselves, the most vulnerable portion of the state, children who are in state custody. If we're unable to take care of them, what are we even doing here? This bill is a big first step. It's just a first step. There's a whole lot of work to do, but you know what, government, this is not working right now. And I really wanted to draw attention to the fact that these families aren't getting paid, checks are bouncing, and bills are due. Help them.
Gentleman from 52nd Nugget Road is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the lady answer a few more questions? And I appreciate your help on this. As I understand the way the bill's structured, the department secretaries don't really come into being until January 1st of next year, correct?
The bill does not prohibit them from being selected before that so that they're ready to go on January 1, 2024.
Okay. And is the idea that we're going to give the department about 10 months or a year to reorganize and get up and going on this?
Yes, we wanted to make sure that we had as little disruption to service as we could, and we thought 10 months was urgent enough, but an acceptable time frame.
We, several legislators, maybe everyone, but I'm not sure, but the Judges Association wrote to us saying that there's an incredible difficulty in abuse and neglect cases. Those cases, by the way, are overwhelming the circuit courts anyway. But there's a problem with having social workers who are skilled and knowledgeable of the case and also have some idea about court processes appearing in hearings, sometimes not appearing in hearings. And I'm wondering where would abuse and neglect cases be in this model? Is it under Human Services?
Yes, it will stay it'll stay under the Department of Human Services, Bureau for Social Services.
Okay. Now, as I see the bill, it actually has the legislature establishing 3 departments instead of where there was 1, but we don't drop to the bureau level and make any changes. What is that, assuming that the department, in dividing it up, will make changes that are needed?
The bill does divide it into the bureau sections. You might have just missed that, Larry.
No, I mean, I understand that it would have the effect of assigning bureaus to particular secretaries and departments. I recognize that.
Okay.
But we don't go below that level. We don't. This bill doesn't really affect what the bureaus are doing necessarily, but there isn't the opportunity in the next year that the bureaus be looked at and examined and changed so that they're more effective.
Yes, and we reviewed every single bureau during the interim process. We had each bureau come in and present to the Locker Committee. So we've been doing that already, and we may see other changes in another phase.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 26, Nugget Rohrbach is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I rise in strong support of this bill, but I'd like to give a little of the history. This bill's been at least 3 years in the making. As already been alluded to, I don't think any one of us are happy with the way the DHHR has been functioning. It's one of the #1 complaints we all hear from our constituents. We've worked diligently through the process of interims to hear from DHHR in great detail after the last bill was vetoed. One of the most interesting things we did was we took a committee report for LACRA in November. Most interesting part of the McChrystal report to me was 36 out of 50 states have already divided their DHHR into 2 or more divisions. We seek to do 3. The 3 divisions have already been alluded to are health, human services, and facilities. The reason I think that's important, these 3 divisions clearly delineate the roles that each department has, and we should be able to get more focused leadership, because I would remind you that change is going to start from the top. DHHR needs change, and I think all 100 of us are getting ready to agree to that. This is a good first start, but it'll allow us, through the executive, to get more focused leadership that frankly has a skill set more in line with these 3 divisions. I'd also remind you, besides this being very important to your constituents, this should be important to this body because this is 40% of the total spend of state government is through DHHR, 40%. So it's incumbent on us as financial stewards of this state to get this right. This is an outstanding first step. I think one of the most significant things that's already been alluded to is the way we've set up the Office of the Inspector General to be an internal monitor, to report back to this body, particularly to LACRA, how things are working. And we should, if anything, I would challenge you to be able to save money when this is fully implemented through efficiencies. So as we get ready to vote, I would remind you that each and every one of your constituents is touched in one way or another by the functions of DHHR. This is an outstanding step to get this right. It is a work in progress. I will agree with that. But this legislature, and particularly LACRA, is committed to getting this right, and I would urge passage in just a few minutes of, to me, one of the most important bills this legislature has taken up in the last 9 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate on the bill? Lady in the 73rd to close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've talked about the how of restructuring the Department of Health and Human Resources, but we haven't talked about the why. First, the current department is too large to manage in a crisis. We've seen this with the past pandemic, with the floods, with the chemical spill, with the derecho. And when that happens, our secretary, our current one cabinet secretary, and all of their resources go towards that crisis. What does that do? It inadvertently leaves out other areas that need attention. Secondly, the current composition leads to organizational conflicts of interest between the providers of services, such as foster care, community and special needs settings, and psychiatric hospitals, versus the offices that regulate and investigate those services. Serious problems are not exposed until there's a loss of life, an injury, or a media investigation. Third, West Virginia remains at the bottom in health and welfare outcomes. These continued poor outcomes deserve focus and attention. Fourth, where is the money going? A $7.6 billion budget lacks transparency. And with 3 separate budgets, we will be able to design the future budget bills so we, the legislative body, and the public can see where the money is being spent. We can also set up a process to put in place to evaluate the spends and the effectiveness of those spends. Currently, as the delegate mentioned, the current DHHR is failing to pay vendors, grantees, and foster families in a timely manner. Fifth, the excessive vertical bureaucracy prevents problems experienced by the frontline workers from being understood and addressed by the current one-person cabinet secretary. Communication issues were the #1 issue described in the McChrystal report by employees, and this hinders their productivity. And finally, the most important whys are the stories that have been shared with all of us on behalf of our most vulnerable populations. And I'm just going to mention a few because I think that their voices need heard. A consumer was repeatedly sprayed with a water hose for non-compliance of staff directions. A consumer overdosed on a staffer's medication and died. A consumer had her shirt sleeves tied in a knot so she couldn't use her hands for 24 hours a day except to get a shower. 3 staffers withheld CPR from one of their clients and the person died. A consumer who required supervision was able to get keys to a facility-owned vehicle, and they crashed and died in a fiery car. The list goes on, but let me end on one story. OM was in foster care for much of her life. She had suffered serious physical, sexual, and psychiatric abuse and was well known in the foster care system in her area. She had 3 children of her own and 2 stepchildren. CPS received a referral about abuse and neglect in the home, but it was not investigated, despite the children in the family having been engaged with CPS in the past. Less than 3 weeks before Christmas, OM murdered all 5 children. She then burned the home with the children's body and killed herself. In a note, she indicated she was suffering from serious mental illness and needed help. The committee substitute for House Bill 2006 is the first step of many in addressing changes we need to make in state government to provide a voice for those not heard. We will be required from this day forward to give our utmost attention to these programs who have failed too many. We invest billions of dollars from hardworking West Virginia taxpayers to care for those that need our help, and we must do better. I demand more accountability and transparency of our state government, and I hope you do as well. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 95 ayes, 3 nays, 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2006 relating to reorganizing the Department of Health and Human Resources.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Summers moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. As opposed to please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk will please communicate the acts of the House to the Senate. For what purpose does gentleman of 42nd seek recognition?
To return to introductions briefly.
Are there objections? Okay, no objections are heard. Gentleman is recognized.
On the House floor with us today is my good friend and one of our attorneys that was here with us for the last couple years, Jacqueline Schiffauer. If the House would make her feel welcome. As well, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Did not notice that we also have a former colleague here with us on the House floor today, one of my best friends in the world and a constituent now, Jeff Pack. If the House would make him feel welcome.
Clerk will please report the next bill on third reading.
House Bill 2309 to require the Division of Forest forestry to create an online renewal process no later than July 1st, 2023.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 68th, Doug Phillips, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of House Bill 2309 is to streamline the renewal process for the managed timberland program through the creation of an online renewal process. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 1 nay, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2309 to require the Division of Forestry to create an online renewal process no later than July 1st, 2023.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2540, Travel Insurance Model Act.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the 51st, Doug Fast, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill adds sections 3362.1 through 3362.15 to the West Virginia Code by listing the scope and purpose of the Act, providing license and registration requirements, establishing a premium tax, setting a competitive market, establishing forms and rates, setting methods, enabling the commissioner to set pricing structures, enabling acceptable sales practices, establishing requirements for travel administrators, setting registration requirements, allowing for both individual and group policies, granting the commissioner enforcement powers, granting rulemaking for the commissioner, and setting an effective date. It is relating to travel insurance, and it's a model act. That is a summary, Mr. Speaker, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2540, Travel Insurance Model Act.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2605 relating to Good Samaritan law.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the 55th, Doug Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute amends the West Virginia Code to provide for immunity from liability of civil damages for persons, including trained professionals or an entity in rendering or providing emergency care or assistance at the scene of an accident, emergency, or disaster without payment for these services, and also provides immunity from civil liability for any person trained in emergency services or entity employing the same in rendering or providing advice, assistance, equipment, or material at the scene of an actual or threatened accident, emergency, or disaster without payment for these services. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Lady from the 70th, Doug Petito. Has every member now voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2605 relating to Good Samaritan law.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2817 relating to Public Service Commission jurisdiction over alternative fuel for motor vehicles.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 51st, Doug Fast, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The state removed jurisdiction of the PSC over retail sale of alternate fuel for alternate fuel vehicles in the year 1991. This was done to encourage research and development for natural gas, methanol, and electric vehicles. Propane has been added in this bill. The bill clarifies and expands the definition of alternate fuel and alternate fuel vehicles. Alternate fuel will mean natural gas, methanol, propane, and electricity. Alternate fuel vehicles will be vehicles using these four sources of energy. The bill also expressly removes PSC jurisdiction over entities generating electricity for retail sales at temporary charging locations with movable generators under three circumstances. 1, at fairs, festivals, and special events. 2, at locations where the electric grid has been adversely affected by emergencies or disasters. And 3, at locations which facilitates evacuations from emergencies and disasters. That is a summary of the bill. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 98th, Doug Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Vice Chair yield for a question.
Yes.
So I'm looking at the bill, and I see the definition that an alternative fuel vehicle shall mean motor vehicles whose primary source of fuel is natural gas, methanol, propane, or electricity. So what about a hybrid type vehicle that uses, gasoline, but obviously generates electricity through that process? How are those covered under this bill?
I don't believe that would be covered.
That wouldn't be covered?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Is there debate on the bill? Okay, if not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There were 92 ayes, 4 nays, and 4 members absent. The majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2817 relating to Public Service Commission jurisdiction over alternative fuel for motor vehicles.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3044 relating to the annual fee for limited video lottery terminal permits.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? Okay, if not, gentleman 37 to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. The bill before you would change the annual $1,000 per video lottery terminal charge to licensees for the privilege of holding a permit that authorizes the licensee to own or lease video lottery terminals from a licensed manufacturer. The bill would instead provide that the annual $1,000 fee is charged only per video lottery terminal for terminals that utilize the 10% lowest performing software versions as measured by the daily gross terminal income of all terminals available for play. The remaining licensees would pay only an annual $500 fee. To determine which licensee will pay which fee each April, the West Virginia Lottery shall compute the daily average gross terminal income for each version of operating software used in all terminals in play from July 1 to the preceding year until April 1 of the current year, and prepare a report listing the 10% of all versions of operating software having the lowest daily gross terminal income over the period. Permit holders who receive the $500 annual discount per terminal and the total amount of each discount for each permit holder. That is the bill, Mr. Speaker.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 65th, Doug Martin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rule 49, since I do have LVL terminals.
Yes, under the set of facts as previously relayed to the chair by the gentleman from the 65th, Duncan Martin, it'll be the ruling of the chair that the gentleman belongs to a class of greater than 5 individuals, and therefore will be directed to vote on this question. Lady number 56, Doug Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will my friend from the 37th yield for a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm looking at the fiscal note, and it says that the lottery thinks there's going to be a committee substitute. Do you know how much this is going to cost? Sorry, that was a lot of...
There is a fiscal note attached, but I don't believe it costs anything. I think it produces more revenue as opposed to costing anything.
It says, based upon these percentages, the lottery will realize a reduction in the collection of permit fees in the range of $3.1 million to $4.05 million annually.
That is the fiscal note, yes, ma'am. However, the manner in which this is calculated requires those terminals that receive the discount to use software that produces 3 times more per day in revenue.
Okay.
So I would expect that there to be a tremendous amount. It would pay that $500 fee in less than a week for those individuals. So it would be a net revenue producer. The fiscal note only calculates that cost, and that is a legitimate number, I think, for the individuals that would utilize it, but it would be overcome by the revenue produced in multiples.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, is there debate on the bill? Does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there are 68 ayes, 28 nays, 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3044 relating to the annual fee for limited video lottery terminal permits.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The gentleman from the 61st.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be made effective from passage.
The gentleman from the 61st, Doug Jeffries, moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 76 ayes, 21 nays, and 3 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3098 relating to the West Virginia Summative Assessment and Formative Assessment.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 38th, Doug Ellington, will explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill does is eliminates the West Virginia General Summative Assessment. It would replace that assessment to remain compliant with federal law by utilizing in lieu thereof a progress monitoring system that is given 3 times a year at the beginning, middle, and the end of the school year. The results would then be required to be disclosed to the parent and or guardian so that they may be informed whether their student is performing in relation to their grade level. The end-of-year assessment would be submitted to the U.S. Department of Education to remain federally compliant. The assessment would be aligned with the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards, not the Common Core standards. The bill also eliminates additional standardized assessments from the classroom. The purpose of this is to ensure that statewide the same assessment is being utilized, so if a student transfers to a new teacher, new school, they will be able to understand the data and know how to properly address them. Mr. Speaker, that's essentially the bill. I urge passage and be glad to answer any questions.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Okay, if not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 87 ayes, 10 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3098 relating to the West Virginia summative assessment and formative
Are there
assessment.
title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3113 requiring high school students to complete course of study in personal finance.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 38th, Douglas Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill requires the county boards provide additional class options for the study of personal finance in high schools. Current code allows it to be integrated into the curriculum of other courses. The options for a one-semester or two-semester standalone elective course and department must include the course on the West Virginia Virtual School. They must include an end-of-course exam that counts toward the final grade, and every student must complete a course in personal finance prior to high school graduation. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 94 ayes, 4 nays, and 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3113 requiring high school students to complete course of study in personal finance.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House and the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3199 relating to removing the requirement that an ectopic pregnancy be reported.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Gentleman from the 38th, Douglas Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill removes the requirement that a physician or institution report the termination of an ectopic pregnancy to the section of vital registration. Mr. Speaker, that's all it is, and I urge passage of the bill.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 64th, Douglas Burkhammer, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief. I think everyone heard my amendment yesterday. I tried to find a compromise in this bill. I believe this reporting should still be required, should be vital, and without the compromise yesterday, I'm going to have to vote against it. I think it's a move in the wrong direction, and I would urge a no vote.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 65 ayes, 31 nays, 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3199 relating to removing the requirement that an ectopic pregnancy be reported.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 61st, Douglas Jeffries.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be made effective from passage.
The gentleman from the 61st moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 69 ayes, 27 nays, 4 members absent, 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3210 relating to the performance of installation of propane gas systems.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 68th, Douglas Phillips, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of House Bill 3210 is to clarify the performance of the installation of propane gas systems. The bill prohibits the use of, refilling of, or work upon a liquefied petroleum gas container without the consent of the tank owner, prohibits the sale, installation, fill, refill, delivery, or permitting to be delivered, or used in any manner any liquefied petroleum gas container unless the container is owned by the person or its use is authorized by its owner, and adds a definition. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 96 ayes, 1 nay, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3210 relating to the performance of installation of propane gas systems.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3261 relating to social workers' qualifications.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 68th, Douglas Phillips, to explain the bill. Or gentleman from the 1st, Douglas McGeehan, to explain the bill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of the committee substitute is to expand the eligibility of provisionally licensed social workers to become fully licensed social workers. The committee substitute accomplishes this by providing that an individual who has experienced a reasonable interruption in employment will be given additional time to complete the requirements to become a fully licensed social worker. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3261 relating to social workers' qualifications.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3272 relating to the operation of private trust companies in West Virginia.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 55th, Dr. Caputo, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill before you exempts trust income from state income taxes. It also amends a legal rule known as the Rule Against Perpetuities, and it authorizes the formation of private trust companies in the state of West Virginia such that we can be competitive with others in the marketplace to attract wealth to the state of West Virginia. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I'm happy to take questions.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 25th, David Hornbuckle, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman yield?
Yes.
Thank you. Will there be any net effect to our state's income taxes via this bill?
No.
All right. Thank you.
Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 92 ayes, 4 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3272 relating to the operation of private trust companies in West Virginia.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3302 to recognize unborn child as distinct victim in a DUI causing death.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the 55th, Doug Caputo, to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute before you clarifies that an embryo or fetus is a distinct victim for the offense of DUI causing death. It clarifies that an embryo or fetus is a distinct victim for the offense of DUI causing serious bodily injury. It clarifies that for purposes of enforcing those crimes, a pregnant woman and the embryo or fetus she is carrying constitute separate and distinct victims. And finally, it creates a preamble to this bill, and it shall be known as Liam's Law. We had testimony in committee, referenced some emotional testimony that we had last week, I believe, on another matter dealing with safety. And many of these incidences come before us through tragedy. and we were visited by the Sharp family. Josh and Olivia Sharp had a beautiful baby boy on the way. And on July 18th, 2020, that life was taken from them by a driver driving under the influence. This, as a parent, no one should ever have to experience this sort of pain and anguish. I want to thank Josh and Olivia for sharing their story and their story of Liam with our committee in hopes that something like this will never happen again in the state of West Virginia. I strongly urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 17th, Doug Pence is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. It's my honor to stand on the House floor today and to urge a yes vote on House Bill 3302, adding unborn children to the possible victims of DUI causing death and DUI causing serious injury. I'm honored to speak on behalf of this bill, but I'm also brokenhearted. I'm honored because protecting unborn children in every situation and in every circumstance is the right thing to do. It's correct policy. However, I'm brokenhearted because of the genesis of House Bill 3302. As mentioned by our chairman, on July 18, 2022, it was a Monday morning. At approximately 7 a.m. in the morning, Miss Olivia Sharp was on her way to work here in Kanawha County. She was traveling southbound on Interstate 77 when a vehicle crossed the median and hit her vehicle head-on. These are the details of the crash that took place on July 18, 2022. However, there's two additional details that must be noted. The northbound driver that caused the crash was driving under the influence while also driving on a suspended driver's license for driving under the influence. And Olivia was 27 weeks pregnant. Upon impact, Olivia's placenta cord was severed, and her child died in her womb. He suffocated. The preamble of this law, or this bill, states the law shall be known as Liam's Law. Friends, this is Liam Sharp. He was born 27 weeks dead because of the senseless and selfish act of someone who would dare get behind the wheel while intoxicated, while under the influence. Josh and Olivia came to the Judiciary Committee hearing last week, and they were surrounded by their friends and family. She testified before the committee, and I think that there are three important dates that this body needs to hear. On July 16th, her and her husband finally decided on the name of their child, Liam Thomas Sharp. On July 17th, they began telling their family what his name would be, and on July 18th at 7 a.m. he was killed. The Judiciary Committee heard that because unborn children are not explicitly protected in 17C.5.2, that the driver who killed Liam could only be charged with DUI causing serious injury. He could only be charged with injuries that he caused to Olivia, not to the fact that he killed her son. I believe today's vote's an easy yes vote. I believe the members of this body and our Senate colleagues across the hall will unanimously agree that adding unborn children to the DUI causing death and DUI causing serious statutes provision is a unanimous yes vote. Quite honestly, this is very personal. This is very personal for me because on July 18th, when Olivia's crash took place, she was 27 weeks pregnant. But that same week, my wife was 24 weeks pregnant. That could have been my child. That could have been any person on this floor, in this body. It could have been our child. So I stand today on behalf of Josh and on behalf of Olivia and their family and urge a yes vote on this bill. But, Mr. Speaker, I stand also for another reason. Because of the seriousness of what we're talking about, I would ask for just a little leniency from my colleagues. The bill before us adds unborn children to the victim section of the crime of DUI causing death and DUI causing serious injury. And again, this is correct policy. If you kill someone while driving a car under the influence, you should go to prison. However, as I look at this code section, I see another concern that must be corrected, that must be addressed. Presently, if you're found guilty of DUI causing death in the state of West Virginia, your sentence is 3 to 15 years in prison. That means you can get behind the wheel of a vehicle and you can kill someone while driving under the influence, and you could possibly be out of prison in 36 months. Again, asking for leniency, in my opinion, that's not equitable punishment. In our state, if you're found guilty of second-degree murder, which by definition is the taking of one's life without premeditation, if you're found guilty of DUI, if you're found guilty of second-degree murder, rather, your sentence will be 15 to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder. How is it that we can agree as a body that your prison sentence should be 15 to 40 years for second-degree murder because someone died, yet your prison sentence for DUI causing death should only be 3 to 15? That makes no sense to me. Without going into great detail, the DUI causing serious injury penalty is no better. I will not belabor the point today because I realize that in doing so, my comments would not be pointed directly at the bill that's before us. However, be rest assured that there's a grieving mother and a grieving father and grieving grandparents in Jackson County that are intent on not just adding DUI causing death to unborn children to the code section, but they're also intent. They're also passionate about seeing the penalties for DUI causing death and DUI causing serious injuries increased. I urge a yes vote on Liam's law. And next year, when we have the opportunity to address the penalties portion, I would urge that you would remember Liam's name and that you would remember his picture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 16th, Doug Westfall is recognized.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speak to the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
The Judiciary Chair and the delegate from 17th gave you a lot of background on this. I'll give you a little bit more, if I can. So, I watched Olivia grow up. She was my daughter's tennis partner in high school. I watched her go to church. I watched her get pregnant. Then they called me about 2 weeks after this happened and come to my office and said, we got to do something. And they thought, and the prosecutor of Kanawha County and the prosecutor of Jackson County thought this was already in law. Because they were going to charge him with DUI causing death. But they researched it, they said, we can't. So, without getting more tore up, this is a good bill. This is not a Democrat bill or a Republican bill. This is the right thing to do. So, I urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Gentleman 94th, Doug Kump.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to speak on the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
Just briefly, in relation to the comments made by the previous delegate, I also am concerned about the disparity in penalties regarding killing someone while driving under the influence and just flat out killing someone. In my previous service as a case manager on high security prisons in another state, we used to talk to each other about this situation. There are many states, and we've told each other this, that if you're going to kill somebody, the best way to do it is to run them over with a vehicle. For some reason inexplicable to me, that is the way to get a lesser sentence. I don't think that's right, and I agree with the delegate that says we should correct that in West Virginia law.
Is there further debate on this bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3302 to recognize unborn child as distinct victim in a DUI causing death.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3311 relating to wine alcohol by volume as compared to beer.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the 68th, Delegate Phillips, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute changes the definition of 2 types of wines. These changes result in table wine having an alcohol content by volume limit of 15.5% and non-fortified dessert wine, having a minimum alcohol content by volume of 15.6%. That is the bill, and I urge passage.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 68 ayes, 29 nays, 3 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3311 relating to wine alcohol by volume as compared to beer.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Phillips moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Chair recognizes the gentleman of the 64th, Delegate Burkhammer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like unanimous consent to return to an introduction.
Okay, no objections are heard. Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you. Sorry, our colleagues, our friends were in the Senate, but we have a special guest. First, I would like members of CORE to stand up for organ donation. They're here for Donor Day. And with them is a very special person. Her name is Samantha Stone. And Samantha is the granddaughter of Ermina Turner. Ermina Turner was one of the first kidney donors in the state of West Virginia, right here in CAMC. There's also been a continuation of kidney disease in her family, and from that, her sister has just recently passed away and was able to donate a kidney through that tragedy to her other sister, Jamie, and everyone is at home recovering well. So in honor of National Donor Day, in honor of the 500 West Virginians that are waiting life-saving organ transplant, and we would encourage everyone to become a donor, and several ways that you can do that, and keep in mind that your donation upon the passing of your life can save 8 lives. So let's make Miss Samantha Stone welcome here in the House.
Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 188, Grid Stabilization and Security Act of 2023.
Chairman of the 61st.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be postponed 1 day.
Gentleman of the 61st moves that committee substitute for Senate Bill 188 be postponed 1 day. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares that motion adopted. Senate Bill 188 will be postponed by 1 day. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 239, requiring Commissioner of Bureau for Behavioral Health to engage certain providers and leaders to study homeless demographic.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 243, requiring substance use disorder inpatient providers to provide transportation to patients.
Are there amendments?
The Committee on Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse moves to amend the bill on page 1, section 4, line 4, by striking out the period and inserting a colon and the following: provided that if the patient's transportation is being provided under the West Virginia Medicaid non-emergency medical transportation benefit, the patient may not be transported to an out-of-the-state location greater than 30 miles past the West Virginia border.
Question is on the adoption of the amendment just read by the clerk. Is there a debate on the amendment? Gentleman from 26, Deckard Roebuck to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It was just read by the clerk. This amendment makes clear that our Medicaid patients, when they're being discharged from a treatment facility and using non-emergent medical transportation benefits, those benefits do not extend past 30 miles of the state border. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge adoption of the amendment.
Gentleman from the 54th, Deckard Pushkin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield?
Gladly.
I was trying to, this bill just went through the one select committee and then directly to the floor, correct?
I believe the gentleman's incorrect. This is a Senate bill, so it went through a full process in the Senate as well.
Or it was pushed out on the first day. But, so I'm just trying to see how this would work. So if Medicaid pays for transportation currently through motive care, now if in the rare instance that a client was discharged, left AMA, or was kicked out of the program, as to say they would be provided a ride home, but just 30 miles into a neighboring state, just in neighboring states, correct? What happens if they live further than that?
This amendment is not germane to that. This extends just for 30 miles past the state border.
Well, it's not germane to that?
Well, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Okay. This just applies to 30 miles past the state border.
Okay. My question
at Medicaid.
Okay. For Medicaid only. Private pay would go further?
You would be correct. That's whatever's in their contract as stipulated in the bill, but this protects the Medicaid program.
I guess what I'm asking is if they live further away, are they not going to get a ride, or are they going to get dropped off on the side of the road? That's my question.
If their Medicaid benefit does not extend past 30 miles past the state border.
So then no ride or dropped off on the side of the road?
The Medicaid benefit does not extend past 30 miles under this amendment.
Thank you for yielding. I'm going to oppose the amendment. Let's see, I've actually done Medicaid transports, and I think you should, if we're going to offer a ride, you should take people to a home or to a safe place, not just drop them off on the side of the road. So I think the humane thing to do would be to vote it down.
The question is still on the amendment read by the clerk. Is there other debate on the amendment read by the clerk? Okay, if not, the question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the amendment read by the clerk, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. Okay, the ayes appear to have it. Okay, the ayes have it. Chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
House Bill 2186, relating to surgical smoke evacuation.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2821, relating to taxation of gambling and lottery winnings.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Capito moves to amend the bill on page 1.
Are there objections to having this amendment explained in lieu of having read? Okay, if not, gentleman from the 55th, Delegate Capito, to explain the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This amendment is largely reflective of the work product that the Committee on the Judiciary settled on and voted out with recommendation. And as I discussed with the Finance Chair it appears that what we are trying to solve here is a clear case of where technology is moving at a pace that is vastly outrunning the capabilities of our tax code. And as a result, West Virginians are being taxed on money that they never had. We've also discovered that West Virginians are not being taxed in a uniform manner, which is creating unpredictability. The problem with the law today is it's putting West Virginians across the state in an untenable position because they're unsure of what to do, and it's putting the state in a position of large unpredictability. So the purpose of this amendment is to sync up the effective date to that in which we implemented the technologies that are causing most of the problems associated with the bill before you. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the amendment. I would urge its adoption.
The question is on the amendment just explained by the gentleman from the 55th. Gentleman from the 12th, Delegate Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I concur with the chairman from Judiciary. This was an oversight on my part and did not have the information prior to taking this information up in Finance Committee. And since that point, we have gathered the information, and I concur with the chairman of Judiciary, so I urge adoption.
Gentleman from the 18th, Delegate Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman of Judiciary yield to a question, please?
Yes.
Looking at the fiscal note from the original bill, your amendment would significantly change that, wouldn't it?
I don't think so, and here's why. I think most of the instances that we're coming into with regard to individuals that are sort of in that untenable position that I was referring, I don't think that tax has been remitted to the tax department yet. And further, I don't know how the fiscal note was, I've really kind of racked my brain to figure out how the tax department came up with the fiscal note in the first place, since all of these numbers are really derived in your federal, or derived from your federal income tax. The state of West Virginia wouldn't have access to any information to sort of, that I know of, at least, or that I've been able to find to sort of ascertain any sort of fiscal note.
Okay, well, thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question again is on the amendment explained by the gentleman from the 55th. Is there debate on that amendment? Okay, if not, those in favor of adoption of that amendment will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Okay, the ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the bill to be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
House Bill 2839, making a technical correction regarding an incorrect fund name and clarifying applicability to mine lands governed by SMCRA and the Abandoned Mine Lands Act.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2896, relating to making West Virginia an agreement state with the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2993, relating to rural emergency hospital licensure.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3122, permitting certain types of rifles using an encapsulated propellant charge that loads from the breech.
Are there amendments?
Delegates Capito and Vance move to amend the bill.
Are there objections to having this amendment explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 55th to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The amendment.
Speaker, yes, thank you very much. I would urge adoption of the amendment. It simply clarifies, in consulting with the Division of Natural Resources, we realized that we omitted some language that was critical to further the purpose of the bill, and that's why the gentleman and I have offered it. I'd urge adoption.
The question is on the adoption of the amendment just explained by the gentleman from the 55th. Is there debate on this amendment? If not, those in favor, yes. The gentleman from the 47th, Doug Longenegger, is recognized.
Did Chair yield? Yes, so what change are we doing with the amendment?
Yeah, it's adding muzzle-loading pistols.
Okay. Thank you.
And clarifying sizes.
The question again is still on the amendment explained by the gentleman from the 55th. Is there debate on this amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of this amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Clerk will please report the next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3200, authorize DHHR to transfer state facilities to regional mental health centers or intellectual disability facilities.
Are there amendments? The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3308, authorizing PSC consider and issue financing orders to certain utilities to permit the recovery of certain costs through securitization via consumer rate relief bonds.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3317, relating to removing specific continuing education requirements.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3318, relating to location of services provided by the Workforce Development Board as related to the one-stop delivery system.
Gentleman from the 61st.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be postponed one day.
Gentleman from the 61st moves that committee substitute for House Bill 3318 be postponed one day. Those in favor of that motion will please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares that amendment adopted. Chair declares the motion adopted. Action will be postponed one day on committee substitute for House Bill 3318. Are there other bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading?
Senate Bill 275, adding state fire marshals to statute included with law enforcement and first responders that receive information on school safety requirements.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3215, relating to land use.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3218, relating to requiring suicide prevention resources be printed on student identification cards.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3328, authorizing the Hatfield-McCoy Regional Recreation Authority to contract to build and maintain trails on privately owned property.
The bill will be advanced. Are there other bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Gentleman from the 61st.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our delegates, Bridges and E. Pritt.
Are there objections to leaves of absence being granted? No objections are heard. Leaves of absence will be granted. Introductions. Introductions. Gentleman from the 7th, Dr. Sheedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In one of the galleries here, I'd like to introduce Mayor from New Martinsville, Mayor Sandy Hunt. If she would please stand and be recognized. Welcome, Mayor Hunt.
Gentleman from the 98th, Douglas Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the West Gallery, I note the presence of a former colleague and past president of the State Board of Education, Dave Perry. Dave, if you'd please stand, will the House please make our colleague welcome.
Gentleman from the 26th, Douglas Rohrbach.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and thank you. Today, joining us in several of the galleries, we have our in-home child care providers. And if any of those are still here, I wish they'd stand in the House and give them a good welcome.
Gentleman from the 54th, Douglas Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Perry is joined today by a delegation from the town of Oak Hill. On behalf of our colleague, Delegate Elliott Pritt, I'd like to welcome the delegation from Oak Hill. Would the House please make them feel welcome?
Lady from the 19th, Douglas Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great sadness that I inform you of the passing yesterday of Toyota Motor Corporation, TMC, Honorary Chairman Shoichiro Toyota at the age of 97. Dr. Toyota was the son of the company's founder, Kiichiro Toyota, and the father of Chairman-elect Akio Toyota, his eldest son. Dr. Toyota began his career with TMC in 1952, having earlier graduated from Nagoya University with a degree in engineering. He later earned an engineering doctorate, writing his thesis on the subject of fuel injection. Automotive technology, quality control, and factory management were his primary emphasis throughout his career, a fortuitous fit for Toyota. If forced to distill Toyota's success down to one word, the word would have to be quality. And if asked to identify the one person most responsible, that person would have to be Dr. Toyota. Dr. Toyota served in many posts during his long career. He became managing director in 1961 and following promotions to senior managing director in 1967, executive vice president in 1972, and was named Toyota's president sales organization in 1981. Following the merger of the sales and production organizations in 1982, he became president of the newly integrated TMC, serving later as chairman of the board between 1992 and 1999, and serving on the board, Dr. Toyota assumed the position of honorary chairman in 1999 until his death. His passion and work were highly acknowledged in the automotive industry. In 1980, he received the Deming Prize, given annually to individuals who have made outstanding contributions to the study of total quality management. In 1986, he was named chairman of Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association. In 2007, he was inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame in Dearborn, Michigan. Dr. Toyota's legacy and contributions to Toyota and society will be forever ingrained in the company's culture and DNA. The funeral services will be held for close family members. TMC will hold a farewell gathering at a later date. I ask for a moment of silence.
Lady May 19th asks for a brief moment of silence. If all members and guests in the galleries will please rise, the House will observe a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Members and guests may be seated. Miscellaneous business. Gentleman from 25th, take it Hornbuckle.
I had an announcement.
Open announcement. Okay. Is there miscellaneous business before we get to announcements? Gentleman from 15th, take it Keaton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask unanimous consent that the remarks from the gentleman from the 17th be on the passage of House Bill, I believe it was 3302, the unborn victims of DUI causing death, be recorded and printed in the appendix of the journal.
Okay, the rules do provide that members must ask their own comments to be recorded.
A unanimous consent request?
If the gentleman's asking that the rules be suspended, then the gentleman may ask that the rules be suspended.
Okay, never mind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Is there miscellaneous business? Okay, if not, gentleman from 61st.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move subject to announcements that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay, are there announcements? Gentleman from the 97th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet tomorrow, February 15th at 1 p.m. in the Finance Committee room. The agenda will be posted. Republican members will caucus at 12:50 in the Chairman's office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 61st.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Rules will meet Monday at 10:45 a.m. behind the chamber. Tomorrow.
Gentleman 51st, Doug Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Judiciary will hold a public hearing for Senate Bill 10, Campus Self-Defense Act, tomorrow, Wednesday, February 15th, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the House chamber. Those who wish to speak must register commencing at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Also, your Committee on Judiciary will meet tomorrow, Wednesday, February 15th at 1:30 p.m. in the committee meeting room. The Republicans will caucus in the Chairman's office at 1:15 p.m. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman 68, Doug Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet tomorrow, February 15th at 4 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room. Republicans will caucus in the Chair's office at 3:45. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 43rd, Doug Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 4 p.m. in the House Education Committee room. The agenda is posted. Republicans will caucus at 3 p.m. today. Additionally, tomorrow, your Committee on Education will also meet at 2 p.m. in the House Education Committee room, and the agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 11th, Doug Fehrenbacher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on the Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse will meet today at 3:30 p.m. in House Judiciary. An agenda has been posted.
Gentleman from 72nd, Doug Riley.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Volunteer Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services will meet at 9:15 on Wednesday morning in the House Finance Committee room. Republicans will caucus at 9 a.m. The agenda has been posted.
Gentleman, the 21st, Doug Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure will meet today at 2 p.m. in the House Education Committee room. Republican members will caucus at 1:30 p.m. in the committee room. The agenda has been posted. In addition, Mr. Speaker, your subcommittee on road and bridge namings will meet tomorrow, February 15th, immediately following floor session in the East Wing, room 204E.
Gentleman, the 46th, Doug Honaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security will meet tomorrow, February 15th, at 9:30 a.m. And we will meet in the East Wing Committee Room 215E at 9:30 a.m. Our chairman asks that you bring your laptop and the agenda will be posted. Thank you.
Gentleman, the 99th, Doug Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Economic Development and Tourism will meet today at 3 p.m. in the House Finance Room. Republicans will caucus at 2:30. Thank you. In House Finance.
Gentleman, the 2nd, Doug Teslo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Energy and Manufacturing has moved today's meeting from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. in the Judiciary meeting room. Republicans will caucus in the room at 4:15, and the agenda has been posted.
Gentleman, the 91st, Doug Forst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Political Subdivisions will meet tomorrow, February 18th at 9:15 at the House Judiciary Committee room. Republican members will meet at 9 o'clock for a caucus. The agenda will be posted.
Lady from the 49th, Doug Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a brief reminder that the Republican members of the House Health and Human Resources Committee will meet a caucus at 2:30 in the chairwoman's office and prior to the meeting at 3 p.m. today. Thank you.
Gentleman, the 17th, Doug Pinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your subcommittee on tourism will meet today at 2 p.m. in the House Finance Committee meeting room.
Gentleman, the 25th, Doug Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, we are all invited to lunch today, provided by the Links, downstairs in the Governor's Conference Room. Free lunch today provided by the Links, and they want to discuss a couple topics. Also, Mr. Speaker, all Democrats will caucus immediately following adjournment in the Wilson boardroom. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question is on the motion that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.